Hey again, everybody. In a video a while back, I mentioned silver in one of my videos. I was talking about how I collect silver, or think of silver as a good hedge against a collapsing economy. And he mentioned that he was looking forward to the video, and then somebody else said something about silver, and I thought, okay, I'll make the video real quick. I am definitely not an expert, a financial expert. I am no economics professor. I'm just a person who is observant in this world and doing my best to maybe save a little bit for my future. Although I haven't saved much silver at all. In fact, I only have a couple small bars, but I'm not exactly rich either. But when people talk about investing in stocks, they talk about whether you should invest in Bitcoin. A lot of people have brought Bitcoin up to me lately and asked why I don't, accept it on my website, as well as why what I think about it in general. And I don't even like talking about it because people who like Bitcoin are religious about it. With what last year, if I would have bought Bitcoin, it would have dropped dramatically by now, right? So if I would have bought it like a few years back, I would have made a killing, and that's what makes people excited. The old FOMO, which is a big thing in our. I just heard that again today, and it stuck in my head. Fear of missing out, and so people hear that, oh, it's gaining, I might as well buy some. The thing about Bitcoin to me is that if the grid goes down, you're not going to be cashing out your Bitcoin. And the same thing with cash is what people say. Well, the same thing with money. You won't be able to get to the ATM. I totally agree, and I believe that you should probably keep a majority of your money in cash form rather than in the bank. That's just my personal opinion. Now, let's just say tomorrow there was a major collapse of the economy, or there was a major solar storm which took out the grid. I'm not going to speculate on what might happen. What would be the best form of cash to have if there was no power, let's say? Well, going out, I think that cash would probably be the best bet short term. You can't eat paper money, no, but people would have a hope that the economy would rebound over time. And therefore, people would probably take bills. I would recommend smaller bills because some people might not take larger bills for fear of, counterfeits in a situation like that. Who knows? My friend and I had discussed it because, he saves larger bills, and I'm like, well, who knows? I feel the same way about silver. These are silver coins. These are actually pre-1965 half dollars, and they vary in silver content depending on what year you get them from. And even I think the ones in 65 had some silver in them, maybe like 10%. These would be a phenomenal form of trade. Silver is easy to identify, and if cash was no longer being taken, the one thing you can be guaranteed is that silver never has gone out of style. Even though it was $5 an ounce through my whole childhood, it rose up to 15 when I bought my silver, and then it jumped up to like 45, and now it's back down to like 15. So it does jump around. My thought is that it's just the long term that matters. Silver to me is just a hedge against the collapse of my country's economy. And for those who don't know, I believe it was back in the 30s or the 40s, they declared that it was illegal for Americans to own gold bullion, and we had to turn it all into the government. Otherwise, it was, you go to prison for it, for having your own gold. If you can think of one legitimate reason why they would have done that other than full control over the economy, I'd be all ears. But up to the 60s, we were using silver in our coins. It was only after 1965 that we stopped using it. And that was because then they could make it out of cheaper metals and, start borrowing, making the Federal Reserve, the masters of the economy. Now, these right here I ordered a while back. I've got several of them. And these are $5 billion bills from Zimbabwe. And these were issued not too long before the whole economy collapsed. This is nothing, the $5 billion. They had $1 trillion bills. And if I'm not mistaken, $100 trillion bill was the largest one. And at the end, you could only buy like a dozen eggs with $100 billion. It was that bad. The economy had fallen apart because the government had taken advantage. And so now they're just collector's items. So if anybody can tell me how, it couldn't happen here, I'd be all ears, but it's definitely possible. These right here are what I would recommend if a person wants to buy a little bit, larger amounts. These are 10-ounce bars. You can buy them from Amex or a couple online places, or you can just go down to a local shop that sells silver and buy them at spot price. I think these were like $150 each, and I've had these for like 10 years or something. And they haven't gained in any value because they jumped up and then back down. My thought is that it's just in case. It's just one of those just in case things. But if I'm just going to try to put this into a nutshell, talking about preparing for a disaster, I would recommend having your cash first. Definitely have your silver. But gold, if you've got enough money to buy gold, that's fine. It's just harder to divide into small amounts if you were to need it. So in an emergency, I would rather not have gold. But the two things that I think are worth more, of course, are one, dehydrated food, which can last 20 years or more. I've got a couple 5-gallon buckets, like 3 or 4 of them, full of, ration type meals, that you can buy in bulk, just in case. I mean, you want to be able to eat for a couple months if something happens. But the other thing that others don't think about that I think might be worth more than any of them is seeds. Seeds for good vegetables and food crops. Because in the long run, people are going to want those heirloom original genetics. And you may think, well, there's seeds everywhere in the stores. There are, but if something were to happen long term, seeds might be harder to come by than people realize. And right now, they're readily available. So that's my little ramble about preparing for the disaster and about silver. I mean, I'm not going into too much detail. Silver has, in the 1980, I think, it rose to a very high amount, $30-40 probably, something like that. And it went right alongside with the oil embargo from the Middle East, where oil prices went up and there were gas lines a mile long from the gas stations here in the U.S. And that could happen tomorrow. I mean, the oil's flowing freely right now, but it's just gases, and oil or gasoline, an extra stock of gasoline or some propane is another good commodity to have, because you never know. You just never know. To me, being prepared is one of the most comforting things that, just knowing that I'm prepared for a disaster. And in fact, I was thinking yesterday I should get together my dried food with some of my important family heirlooms and stuff into one area in case there were, ever a major catastrophe and I had to leave in a hurry. Because I have a spot out east from here where I've scouted out, where I'd drive right up to, set up camp and, hold my ground, because there's a fresh spring nearby. No matter what happens to the local water sources, there's fresh water, and I feel grateful to live in an area where I have that. Because I would feel very nervous to live in a place like Southern California or New Mexico or Arizona or Nevada. So, that's my thoughts on preparing. Being in a safe spot is one of the most crucial aspects. So, talk to y'all later. Hope that answered some of the questions, and talk to y'all later.